Byline Audio.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hello and welcome to the Byline podcast with me, Adrian Goldberg. This time, Justice for Jamal. We're speaking to Hanan El Atr Khashoggi, the wife of murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and Hanan's lawyer, Randa Fahmy. Jamal was in exile after criticising his native country and was writing for the Washington Post before being brutally killed in October 2018 at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The CIA concluded that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler, ordered the killing, a claim MBS has denied. 5 people were sentenced to death in a Saudi court, but later pardoned at the request of Jamal Khashoggi's children. This is a human story as well as a political one because, Hanan, just explain how you had to fight for recognition as Jamal's 4th wife.
Absolutely. I would like to share with your audience, thank you for having me. I did have a lot of distraction around me at this time when I lost to Jamal because I was in United Arab Emirates, which is a country, have a part in this tragedy as well by cooperating with Saudi authority. And all of my movement or my decision after my husband being disappeared is being trapped by the authority because I've been detained many times. I've been tortured and threatened for my life, and I've been put under house arrest twice. That's why I did not come forward to introduce myself to the public. Some was knowing me already, but it's a small cycle. I'm talking about media as well. A lot of people around the world did not hear about me because what I mentioned, I was trapped with the treatment from United Arab Emirates, which we will come to it later in our conversation.
Sure. And just so people understand, you were born in Egypt and you were working for an airline?
Yeah, born in Egypt. I grew up in Dubai. I was working for Emirates Airline for 22 years.
And you were, as you say, detained then by the UAE authorities. Was that before Jamal was killed or afterwards?
Before he been killed, I got engaged to him in the first week of April 2018. They detained me in the 3rd week of April 2018, putting me under house arrest for 15 days, confiscating my passport, torturing me, and harassing me to threaten me and my family. They even blacklisted my family. They cannot leave United Arab Emirates. And this harassment and threaten from the intelligence of United Arab Emirates has been continued until I fled in July 2022. I've been also put under house arrest again after Jamal being disappeared in 2019 for 2 months because I refused to have an interview with Al Arabiya channel, belongs to Saudi Arabia. To disparage my husband's name, I refuse.
So you were ordered or asked to give an interview, TV interview, to the Saudi national TV station, essentially exonerating the Saudi state for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
Absolutely. This is what happened. They approached me in January 2019. I refused. United Arab Emirates go to the order from authority. They stopped me while I'm coming back from Birmingham flight in February 11, 2019. They put me under house arrest as a punishment for 2 months until middle of April 2019. No salary, no passport, torturing me, more pressure, blacklisted my family. And it was very bad because they want to push me to come out and say things wrong and bad about Jamal, which is I refuse.
And Randa, you played an important part in this story because, as I understand it, the Muslim cleric who married Hanan and Jamal was initially reluctant to acknowledge that wedding, but you were able to persuade the cleric that the wedding should be officially recognized. That took a little bit of doing as well.
I think you're being kind and nice by saying persuading. We actually had to sue in a court of law in the state of Virginia to force the imam to produce that wedding certificate. He and two witnesses to the marriage of Jamal and Hanan, June 2nd, 2018, in Alexandria, Virginia, should have come forth immediately with that wedding certificate, but they withheld it for a variety of personal and political reasons. So we had to actually take him to court. We deposed the witnesses themselves, and we were able to, after 2 long years of litigation, secure that certificate, certainly not willingly, but we did settle the case 5 days before we were going to court, able to get that wedding certificate to prove that Hanan indeed was married to Jamal, and it is certified and justified here in the United States. So it is indeed a legitimate marriage.
And we should say as well, there have been developments relatively recently now in that Hanan has been given refugee status, has been allowed to claim political exile in the United States.
Absolutely. And that was another certain battle, if you will. As Hanan mentioned, she was being put under house arrest and constantly harassed, feared for her life and for her family's life. And so in July of 2020, in the midst of COVID, she fled the Emirates and flew into JFK Airport in New York, called me and said, "Randa, I can't take it anymore." And I said, "Hanan, we're going to claim political asylum. Immediately go to my house in Washington, where I hid her for over a year and a half. She was fearful for her safety. I was fearful for her safety. And the only safe place was in my own home in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. But we successfully, with the wonderful help of Congressman Jamie Raskin, Congressman Don Beyer, and Senator Tim Kaine, were able to submit her application for political asylum and secure that most recently. And we're very, very happy to have Hanan here in the United States, safe and sound, where she will be securing her green card shortly and will be pursuing a path to American citizenship.
And Hanan, we've heard about the torture that you suffered in the United Arab Emirates. I guess it just proves, doesn't it, the kind of the long arm of the Saudi state. People might hear stories about Saudi Arabia, hear about the brutal murder of Jamal, but the UAE is a neighboring state, it's an ally, and even in the United States, you believe that your phones had been hacked, that you were subject to Pegasus spyware. So this is a state that doesn't easily let go of those it perceives to be an enemy.
It is very simple to say to you and for your audience, it did destroy all of my whole life. I don't have life anymore. And United Arab Emirates did choose to play this because United Arab Emirates itself, it does not believe in a real democratic. It's against the Arabic Spring, it's against the mentality of my husband. While investigation, they used to criticize his act, criticize his vision, and what he's looking for, the good value he did carry. It was against them belief as a member of the intelligence of United Arab Emirates. This is what I can share with you.
Now, I'm keen to understand, Hanan, exactly what his politics were. I understand, but feel free to correct me, that Jamal was not somebody who believed in the overthrow of the state, but he did want political reform in Saudi Arabia. So what was his vision for his country?
Jamal Khashoggi was not a dissident, was not opening. He said it himself in an interview. You can retrieve it from YouTube. His close friend can agree with what I'm saying. Jamal Khashoggi considered himself a well-educated advisor to his country, and he believed he have a responsibility to try to amend things before it's getting worse. In sense, he believed he have to share internally within a kingdom itself. It have to be more democratic, more tolerance for different opinion, and more listening for opinion for a people who's experter in a different field like politics, like constitution, like looking for freedom, democratic, regardless it's a republic or reality. He does not focus at all who's in the top. He focus of the act of the top, regardless, and he made it very clear. He obeys the swear for the throne of Saudi kingdom. He obeys for the promise to support Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman about fighting corruption and getting justice for everything. But Jamal Khashoggi was not happy about there is not enough transparent and not enough listening to a different opinion within the kingdom itself. Jamal Khashoggi, again, he's not a dissident.
He had at one time been quite close to the royal family. Was he close to MBS at one time?
And not to MBS. He met with the MBS and he was willing to be close to MBS, but he was close to most of the royal family, especially the ex-ambassador of Saudi Arabia here, Prince Talal. Jamal was advisor for him. He was very close to him. And just to share with you and your audience, Jamal Khashoggi was always the Middle Eastern and Arabic speaker looking to his speech and believe he is sending a message on behalf of the Saudi royal family. And this is to show you how much he was close to the royal family. That's why the royal family did not like the fact in 2016 when he said negative opinion about electing Donald Trump, which is starting the real problem of Jamal Khashoggi by putting him under house arrest in 2016, which is my relation become very close to him. And I believe I've been watched since this time. But we have the evidence by Citizen Lab. I've been watched by 2017.
Yeah, Citizen Lab is an organization which can check whether you are subject to spyware on your devices.
Absolutely. This is the one approaching me and they ask my corporation and they ask me, please help us to save any journalist's life by giving us your device. I just hand it over for a sake to save any journalist alive because I believe it is very important. We have to maintain and let the journalists to be free and transparent and support them.
So, Adrian, that is the Pegasus project that was conducted by a number of journalists, including the Washington Post. So, as Hanan mentioned, in mid-2021, the Washington Post, two journalists approached us wanting to privately talk with us about a very important matter and indicated to us that they wanted to see Hanan's devices. We had no idea why they were asking. And, we were somewhat reticent to hand over her phones and her computer, but they assured us that this was a project that would help save lives and would be something that was of utmost importance to journalists around the world. And so we complied. And the initial investigation by the Washington Post and Amnesty International was not definitive with respect to Hanan's devices because she had an Android and an iPhone both. And so they weren't able to dig deep into those devices. And of course, Jamal had devices as well that are in the custody of the Turkish government still. We've been fighting to get those devices back. And so mid-2021, we complied. There was no definitive findings. So the Washington Post agreed with me that we should dig a little deeper. And so we hired a number of firms, including Citizen Lab and others, to do a real deep dive. And it took them about 6 months. That culminated in December 2021, the Washington Post article that definitively confirmed that Hanan's devices were infiltrated, starting way back in 2017 when she was in constant contact with Jamal, continuing through before Jamal was murdered, and certainly after Jamal was murdered. And so Hanan's devices, unfortunately, may have been how they tracked Jamal's whereabouts, travels, and conversations, thoughts, future plans, and things like that. And so we are, as you may know, in the middle of litigation against the maker of that particular spyware. It's the NSO group who makes Pegasus spyware that was implanted on Hanan's devices.
And they have denied any involvement and any surveillance of Hanan's devices?
They do deny, absolutely did not track her. But the question is, they trained the intelligence officers in the United Arab Emirates, who then implanted it on Hanan's devices when they not only targeted her from afar, but also particularly when they took her under house arrest in April of 2018, then went ahead and forced her into giving all her passcodes. And that is exactly where we pinpointed them manually implanting the spyware on her devices. And we're engaged in legal action here in the United States against the NSO group.
And Hanan, that must be quite a thing to have to live with. Of course, it's not your fault if your phone was hacked and it unwittingly led the Saudi authorities to Jamal. But nevertheless, the sense that you were part of the means which led them to him must be very difficult for you to have to bear.
Absolutely. It's hurting me a lot. It's hurting me a lot. And I wish I did have the knowledge earlier, me and him. There is such a technology can go this far to track him accurately and just to make a trap for him in Istanbul and to get him, because I'm the only one know my husband movement and no one knows this except me. And of course, we was in touch until last minute of his life. And it's very easy for them to get him through me. But again, I was not aware. My conscience is clear, but I feel very hurt. I feel very sore. I was one of the tools to reach my husband because they realize how much I'm the closest one in his life to him.
You said something very disturbing a few moments ago, Hanan. You said that it was Jamal's outspoken comments about Donald Trump that really triggered the Saudi royal family. That's when he started getting into trouble with the Saudi royal family and with MBS. What did he say, and why was that so important in terms of what happened eventually to him?
I think it was like kind of Zoom call between him and some of the meeting here in US, and they asking him about what he think about Donald Trump. He said, we believe he's very extreme right side. He doesn't have an acceptance for others. He doesn't have a tolerance for others. And we're not happy about his climb to the White House. The royal family of Saudi Arabia felt very embarrassed saying something. We might be a bear. We are his from the next president of United States. You sit down in a house, you don't meet with anyone, you don't get in touch with anyone. And basically, they put Jamal in 2016 under house arrest. And this time, I become more close to Jamal. I'm sympathizing with him. I'm talking to another Arabic journalist, some of them based in London, and I'm talking to them, please do write something. Jamal Khashoggi have to speak. He have to feel free and not to put in under house arrest. Jamal was under house arrest from as soon he made this interview until the conflict happened with Qatar, the blockage of Qatar in 2017. A Saudi authority removed the blockage of him, gave him the freedom to move. Then he got invitation from Abu Dhabi to attend one of the conference to speak. As soon he arrived to Abu Dhabi airport, they deny his access, United Arab Emirates, and deport him back. And this was the alarm for Jamal. There is something around him, and at this time it was Ritz-Carlton problem in Saudi Arabia. A lot of people being put in a hotel, a lot of people being tortured and mistreated according to the media in this Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. And Jamal, he was scared and he felt he might be one of them. Then he took the decision to just flee to US and stay in our house where we got married here in McLean. And he did promise his family back Saudi Arabia, he will go to America, he will keep quiet, and he will not interfere in politics or he come in Twitter or whatever. But actually, as soon he landed in America, he used the freedom, which is, I agree with him, and I was encouraging him. He used the freedom to speak. And he came out in Al Jazeera and he started to speak and criticize most of the dictator in Middle East. Till this moment, he's supporting the crown prince in sense, I'm happy with your act for fighting corruption, but please listen to us. Please do give us a chance to speak. We're not an enemy of our country. In fact, Jamal was expected invitation from the crown prince in the beginning of 2018 when the crown prince visit US. Jamal was willing to go and explain to him his vision and his idea and to prove to him, I'm not an enemy of my country. I can come back at any time. But the gap is starting getting bigger and bigger because there is a lot of people convinced the royal family, no, Jamal is a dissident. Jamal is Muslim Brotherhood. Jamal planning to make a network to do revolution in Gulf area and remove all the reality, which is not true.
So the context going back to 2016, if you remember, nobody in the world nor in the United States thought that Donald Trump was going to win. It was quite a surprise. And so none of the Arab leaders, but for Sisi, I believe, had met with him, had known Donald Trump or met with him. So in 2016, when Donald Trump went and won the presidential election, every Middle Eastern leader tried to get into his good graces, including the Saudis, who didn't know him at the time. And so Jamal gave a speech at the Washington Institute for Near East Affairs, a prominent think tank here in Washington, where he said that Donald Trump was bad for America, bad for the world, too right-wing, too conservative, is not going to be a good leader. And that is what triggered the Saudis to put Jamal under house arrest, because they were fearful that they didn't have a relationship with Donald Trump and that Jamal was ruining it by saying what he did, that some people thought Jamal spoke for the government. So that's really the context that started the house arrest.
It's worth noting here as well that the CIA report, which suggested that they believed that MBS had ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, Trump was ordered to release that document, to declassify it, and he didn't, did he? It was leaked, but Trump didn't release the report. No. It was released by Joe Biden. So there are many who feel that Trump was rather too close to MBS and did little to secure justice for Jamal Khashoggi. So where are we now with that situation? Because as I mentioned, there were, I think, 5 people who were sentenced to death for his murder. Another 2 people were convicted. Those people who were sentenced to death were said to have been pardoned at the request of Jamal Khashoggi's children. So do you feel, Hanan, that you have justice for your husband's death?
Absolutely no. There is no justice and there is no transparent. They need to be more transparent, but at least hand over his devices. We've been asking about his devices because if his wife and I been targeted with all of this spy material, what about the victim himself? And I've been told by a Turkish journalist before I fled from United Arab Emirates, one of his conversation with Jamal in May 2018 in a public coffee shop in Istanbul been taped by the intelligence. That's telling me the intelligence of Turkey as well was chasing my husband. I did send a message to Mr. Antonio Guterres, the United General Secretary. There is no cooperation from him. Ms. Agnes Kalimar, there is no cooperation from her. And regarding Saudi itself, I did not receive any official apology until now. The lawyer of Saudi authority told my lawyer, Ms. Randa Fahmy, Mr. Michael Kalog, we are sorry for Ms. Hanan Khashoggi. The Saudi authority feels sorry for her, but I did not receive it officially. And there is no minimum things to happen to try to rectify this horrible crime, which will never be rectified, but at least the minimum to happen to release the prisoner, which is some of them is a very dear friend of Jamal. When he used to talk about them, he used to cry, like Assam Zamil, for example. This not happened. And I'm wondering, a Western country, including United States, introducing themselves as a human right and they stand for democratic, but at least to try to push for the minimum to bring justice for my husband. And last, I did not compensate. They destroy my life, and not only me, sir, and my family. My family has been divided to Arabic countries, and some of them staying home as a punishment, not working, and I'm supporting them financially with my little income, and I did not get any apologization or compensation like any crime happened in the world. At least minimum compensate the alive victim, because I'm the second victim after my husband. The way is my life being destroyed, the way I live in a very low cost, being isolated, I live in very horrible life condition. That's not fair. There is no justice.
That is why we are working here in Washington with the help of the Biden administration and several senators who have agreed to raise the issue of Hanan's compensation in the context of justice for Jamal with the Saudi government. So we have promises that they will be raising this with Princess Rima, the Saudi ambassador here in Washington, D.C. We have promises that they will be raising this with the defense minister of Saudi Arabia, Prince Khalid bin Salman, the brother of Mohammed bin Salman. And of course, we are trying to raise this as well with Mohammed bin Salman himself. Although our legal discussions continue, we feel that political pressure to compensate Hanan, give her what is her legal right as the wife of Jamal, as the only wife of Jamal under Islamic law. It's called diya. The children has received the compensation. Now it's time for the Saudis to compensate his wife as a matter of justice, as a matter of showing mercy and sympathy. You know, they have admitted they claim responsibility for this. So she deserves this justice.
Randa, thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much, Hanan, for your time as well. Obviously, a very, very difficult story for you to share, but I really appreciate you doing so. Thank you. And we will continue to focus on the story of Jamal Khashoggi. I think for anybody who's concerned about journalism and freedom of speech and human rights, this is a hugely significant and important story. You've been listening to the Byline podcast, supported by subscribers to the Byline Times. Please consider taking out a subscription if you can. Our print edition has content that you can't read anywhere else. You find details over at our newsbreaking website, bylinetimes.com. That's at bylinetimes.com. This episode has been produced in Birmingham, UK by me, Adrian Goldberg, and Harvey White. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you again soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Byline Audio.